Hey, it's Ryan with QLZ back in the green room, and it's a couple of Italians today. A couple of Italians that Joey, you and I are talking. We actually have patience. It's
Heck
Joey from
yeah.
from Life of Agony. How you doing, man?
How are you, Ryan? Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's a
Good.
pretty rare thing, right? Italians with patience.
I
What's
know
going on here? It's
it doesn't happen.
2024.
It doesn't happen very often. I told you, like we initially tried to get this going. Nothing was working really on my end that well, and I was like, oh shit. I feel so bad whenever this happens. It doesn't happen very often with bands ever, where like something is either not working on my end or the way that it should. And I was like, dude, you mind if I restart my computer? Like, no, you're good. And I'm like, oh my god, it's an Italian with patience. I hit the lottery on this one today. Thank God.
They should make a TV show, Italians with patience.
Dude,
It'd
like,
be
tell me, you
very
guys.
boring. It'd be
Let's
very
get it on
boring.
Prime. You guys in Life of Agony have I know you told me
A documentary, yeah. It's
Sound of
like a
Scars is on Amazon Prime. Check that out from kind of a bit of how you all kind of grew up and whatnot, which is cool. I know it's on the Life of Agony website as well. Dude, before we dive into anything music with you guys, since you are Italian, anytime I have an Italian person come on, your favorite Italian dish?
I gotta tell you, it would have to be gnocchi.
Oh, okay.
Gnocchi with sauce with fresh mozzarella melted in the
Yeah.
sauce. And you can hear my accent. You
Yeah, I
obviously know
know.
I'm
I
Italian from
love it.
Brooklyn.
I love it. Do you
Gnocchi
make
with
that your
fresh mozzarella.
no, no, no. Do you make that yourself, or is it your wife
Yeah.
make it, or who makes it? Okay, you do.
No,
All right.
we both cook. I grew up, believe it or not, I'm glad you asked me that. Something we haven't talked about, you and I. I grew
Yep.
up making pasta. I worked at a
Nice.
store called Pastosa. I started when I was 12 years old. So I would make all the fresh pastas. I make raviolis, cavadelli, gnocchi, um, lasagnas, everything. I
Mhm.
make it fresh, out of flour and dough and all that. And I worked at a very popular store in Brooklyn called Pastosa, and I also worked at Landy's Pork Store, who also did
Okay.
Italian specialties. So I grew up cooking alongside creating a band. That was like
Yeah,
what I did.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Is this Pastosa? Is it still there in Brooklyn, or
yeah,
is it okay? Awesome.
yeah. They actually have a few locations now. So the owner of the original location that I worked at is basically was like a dad to me back then.
Awesome.
He really took me under his wing, and he taught me a lot, and it was really cool.
That's
Really.
awesome. And know you do a lot of producing. Obviously, Life of Agony, you have a new track out now in honor of Brandon Lee the Crow. We were also talking
Right.
about Gojira.
Yeah.
And the Olympics, and I know you're pretty close with those guys as well. Have you had a chance to talk to them since they've done the Paris Olympics opening, and kind of
Yes.
and what are their feelings on it and
Well,
the reception?
I'll tell you what. I just went to go see those guys. They played with Corn out in New Jersey about a week and a half ago.
Hmm.
I went out with the guys from Anthrax. So it was me and
Nice.
Frankie Bello and Rob Caggiano from Anthrax and Volbeat. So the three of us and Mike Monterulo, who's a manager. The four of us went to go see them, and I had a chance to go backstage and talk to the Gojira guys a little bit. But I spoke to the bass player, so I ran into him first, and he told me the whole story, how trippy it was,
Hmm.
and how they had to stand on those pillars
Yeah.
outside that castle. And he was telling me his legs were like shaking because they were up so high, and they had harnesses around them but even with the harness, he said he was so the event was so massive, like the whole
Hmm.
thing was so massive. And those guys are used to doing big stuff, obviously. He goes, but it was different. It was being high up in the air, being on a ledge, looking down and seeing how high you were, but still performing and playing your instrument. His name is Jean, the bass player. Really great people. Those guys are great. And yeah, he told me it was just an experience. Like it happened, everything happened so fast. Once they started the performance, it was over. It felt like a split second, like the song
Okay.
was over. You know how that happens? Like,
Yeah.
you're in a moment and it just goes by so fast. Um, and yeah, he said they were just blown away by the whole experience. It was something that they know resonated throughout the community, the metal
Mhm.
community, and the world. And people who weren't even into metal were like, "What's this?" Like some people were for it, some people were against it. He was telling me like,
Mhm.
"What is this?" And some people like, "Wow, what is this?" So that reaction is just it's just super. It's just a
I would have loved
really
to.
cool
I,
thing.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when whoever puts the talent together is talking with Gojira, and it's like, hey, we have this idea. what do you think? And it's like they play it in front of a bunch of people who maybe have no idea who this band is.
Right.
But I think have you ever seen their videos at Bonnaroo? They played Bonnaroo a couple. I think it might have been pre-COVID. They played Bonnaroo in Tennessee.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't see a
I think
video of
like
that. I
four or
could go
five
check it
years
out.
ago, and all these people who are not metalheads like went in, and I think there's a doc or there's somebody I think documented the whole thing on YouTube. I'll have to see if I can find it when we're done here. But like they won over a whole bunch of people at Bonnaroo, which is not a rock and metal festival, at all.
I'll tell you why. I think, well, first off, I think they're an incredible band. They're my favorite band by far.
Mhm.
I've been listening to those guys for years and years and years, even before I had the chance to get to know them a little bit. And I adhered to their music so quickly when I heard it. The intensity of their music, the depth of their music, the diversity of their music, like how it's very dynamic. I love the changes. I love from song to song how you get something a little different, but yet it's so cohesive with itself. Every album feels so perfect and together, like all the songs make sense together. I just think they're incredible at what they do. I also think they're incredible people. When the first time I met Joe was because of Kirk Hammett, believe it or not, from Metallica.
Okay.
I was out at a dinner with Kirk, and Kirk and I are good friends for many years. And Joe came out, and because we were in Brooklyn, we were in New York, and Joe lives in Brooklyn. He has a studio called Silver Cord Studios in Brooklyn. So Joe came out to the dinner. That was the first time I met him, but I didn't even know Gojira. This is going back 10, 11 years
Okay.
ago, maybe 12 years ago. Anyway, long story short, Joe turned out to be an awesome guy. I'm like, oh, I'm going to check out your band. I'll check out your band, Gojira. Kirk was like, you're going to like them, man. I'm like, I'm going to check them out. So I checked them out after I met the guy, and I loved it. I actually loved
Mhm.
the band. I was like, so then I didn't get to see those guys. I didn't even get to see them play live until years later. And then I finally did. And then Life of Agony, we did a festival with Gojira. So of course, as soon as I was done playing, they were going on right after us on the other stage. I ran to the stage after I was done, left my stuff, ran to the stage. I was right there on the side of the stage.
Mhm.
I watched their whole show, so excited. And as they're playing, they kept coming over to me like and looking at me like waving to me and like saying hello. And I was like, I think they still like he's recognizing me. Something's going on. Apparently, they knew who I was somehow. The guitar player gave me a pick. While he was
Mhm.
playing, he ran over, gave me a pick. And then after the show, we talked backstage, and Joe was like, "Do you remember I met you with Kirk?" I was like, "Dude, you're like my favorite band." You're saying you remember when I met you. I'm like gaga right now. I'm just so happy to talk to you, man. And so he was like, "I live in Brooklyn still. I have a studio. You should come down." So I was
That's
like,
awesome.
"Okay." So that's what we did. After that tour, after we got home from Europe,
Mhm.
he was touring, I was touring. Um, I called him up. He gave me his number, Joe, and I called him up. And we spent a whole day in September last year. We spent a whole day at his studio, laughing, sharing stories, listening to music, sharing music with each
Mhm.
other, what we grew up on, then plugging in guitars and playing, messing around a little bit. He was showing me some of his new
Mhm.
model guitars back then, and it was really fun. Just a great people, great guys. So that's good for all you to know that Gojira just class people, great
I
people.
know they're on the bucket list to go check out. So they're part of it, and it's again. I'm glad. I know we had talked about this a little bit before it kind of got rolling. I was like, I'm glad you brought up Gojira up because again, it's one of those bands out there. And you and I were talking about new bands and what am I into and kind of some of
Yeah,
the bands you got a studio and some of the bands that you're checking out. But want to focus on obviously on you guys for right now for Life of Agony and what you've done with this song, The Crow. It's a song that you produced. Obviously you're big fans of the movie. I guess why was it so special to release this song? I know there's an anniversary, but why was it so special to get this song out now and just kind of, is this something you guys have been mulling for a long time to get a song out about the Crow in honor of Brandon Lee as well?
yes. I'll tell you the whole story of how this song
Mhm.
came about. It's actually been around for a minute. This song for us. Are you familiar with the movie The Nun? It was a horror movie called The Nun.
Last couple of years, right?
Yeah, it
Was it
was a
last couple
couple
of
years
years? Yeah.
ago. It was called
Haven't
The
seen it,
Nun.
but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So our good friend, who's a big Life of Agony fan, Corinne Hardy, he was the director of The Nun. Well, apparently he had the contract to do the new Crow remake. This is
Okay.
going back about three years ago, right during COVID. He was going to be the person, the director of the new Crow.
Hmm.
Since he was a big Life of Agony fan, he had asked us to write a song for that movie, for his movie
Okay.
that he was going to do a remake. So that song seed was born then. Okay, what happened was Corinne's studio lost the contract for the movie, so the song sat in the hard drive. Okay, when this new Crow movie was coming about, we knew the anniversary of the original Crow, which we're huge fans of.
Hmm.
When that actually was announced and we heard about it, we're like, oh well, they're still making that movie, but wouldn't it be cool to take that song and actually do a tribute to Brandon Lee instead? Like use the song, like rework it in a way where we're actually paying tribute to the person who started this all,
Yeah.
the person who, first of all, that soundtrack of that original movie, I'm sure you agree with me, was incredible. It was a great soundtrack. Um, so we wanted to make something special that felt like it could fit on a sound on the original
Hmm.
soundtrack, and that was like obviously part of my job is to also make kind of produce and engineer the song and record the song in a way that it would feel like it could have been on that soundtrack, the original soundtrack. So it was just a great way to pay a tribute to someone who lost their life during the film, someone
Yeah.
who we really respected so much. And growing up, that movie was a favorite of ours. So we just thought, hey, this is the way this is the reason why this song seed was actually born, was to do this with it. So that's really the story of how that this song came about.
That's awesome. And it feels like it's from the '90s because I feel like now if you listen, the Sick Puppies have a new song out called "Going Places," and it reminds me a lot like the '90s like alt kind of stuff. So we have a couple of tracks out there right now that are kind of like '90s, kind of remind me of being like a kid growing up, and this is one too where it's like it's kind of got that dark, that kind of like gothy feel to it.
Yes.
And the video does as well. So was that kind of like one of the big things for you guys? Like even the video, it feels like you could be out and about on the streets of New York right now, and somebody could jump down in front of you, or there could be crime or something kind of happening, and somebody kind of jumps in to save you. Is that kind of the vibe for the music
Yeah,
video as well?
that's exactly what it is.
Hmm.
It's we wanted to again have the feel of that '90s movies in the video
Hmm.
of that '90s movie. Like we wanted to bring that feel to the screen. So when the song played and you saw the images of the band and the images of the actual reworked movie clips that we did, that was done with AI, by the way, which was
Okay.
incredible. That team did a really great job, and so did the video people we used. We just we feel like we really nailed what we set out to do with the song, with the video. Was so happy and proud of how it came out, just all around. That's why we're very grateful and thankful. People like you, Ryan, that are playing it. There are stations across the country that are picking it up and actually saying, "Wow, this track is really good." Like they're actually taking the time to listen and get into it, and that's what you're doing here, and we really appreciate it.
And it's fun to do it. It's cool because again, it's got a where it kind of comes from. There's not a whole lot of songs out there, at least right now. If you look at Ice Nine Kills, like obviously everything's based off a horror movie, but not a lot of bands do that.
Yeah,
It's to highlight something different in the industry, which I think we all need. And I told you how
we
much I
need.
love playing new bands and whatnot. Is there anything in? I don't know if this is a dumb question or not. Is there anything? Do you do anything different when you write a song that's kind of inspired by a movie compared to maybe something inspired by a life experience, or you look out at the world and you write about whatever is going on, or whatever influences you? Is there any different path where it's like, hey, we're writing a song about a movie? Do you do anything different, or is it kind of the same as most other songs?
I think it's the same.
Okay.
We have, the approach is, believe it or not, when you listen to the lyrics of this particular song, The Crow, that we put together here, um, it could be just like any other Life of Agony song we've ever wrote. It could be very personal to somebody,
Hmm.
the lyrics. It could be about someone that they lost and that they want to revenge, or like it could really play into any scenario, which that's the way this band writes. It's very organic, our way of writing. And I know a lot of bands out there do that as well, but we're really true to grit, true grit, organic when it comes to everything. When it comes to writing, even the way the music comes together, it's very organic in our band. Nothing's forced. If I always say, if it feels forced, if you're trying to put it together and it's not working, we usually just cut the umbilical cord
Mhm.
and just move on from the idea, because that just means it's not working. If you have to try so hard to make it work, it's never going to work. So we're very organic, and I appreciate that you can, hear that, basically
Yeah.
hear that in the track, that I believe you can. Do you feel that way? You can hear that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, you can tell if you really listen in, you can tell it's about something important. It's about something
Yes.
that means a lot to people. I told you, like, I'm a massive fan of Linkin Park because I always don't dive into lyrics a lot, but it's a band for me that I'm like, oh, okay, like I can feel like kind of what's going on here and what they're going through and whatnot. It's I think that's some of the best music out there right now
Yeah.
is stuff that you can tell kind of what they're going through.
Yep.
And again,
And
like you
you could
said, like
also,
that's all I was curious. Yep, go ahead.
no, you, with Life of Agony, that was a thing that is a staple in our career, in our whole catalog. Is that it was almost like an open diary of everything we've gone through from day one.
Hmm.
And you get that if you watch The Sound of Scars, that film, that's on Amazon Prime Video. You really understand that that is just how we are, and that's how everything comes together for us. It's all from life experience. It's all from everything we've gone through, everything we've witnessed. All of that goes into our music.
Oh, and I absolutely love that. Do you guys have any other movies that? And again, I think you made a good point too about like, hey, if you're trying to force something that doesn't come about,
Yeah.
move on. But like, you guys are able to come back to this as well. So I feel like if you have an idea and you're kind of stuck with it, it doesn't mean you can't come back to it either,
Oh,
because
that's
that's
true.
exactly what you all did. Which that's
That's
kind
what
of
we did.
probably a little different scenario than something hey, you had the idea, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to hit you later on, and you can say, oh,
Yeah.
now I finally know where I want to go with this.
You're absolutely right, and that's happened many times as well. You put something aside, it's not working at the moment, but then something happened where, I don't know, suddenly it makes sense.
Mhm.
Suddenly the idea, now it's time for it to be born, in a weird way. Like, okay, it didn't work a few years ago, but all of a sudden now it's coming together easily. So, that happens a lot. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That does happen a lot to us. And again, going back to this track, I feel like it came together so seamlessly, so easily. Once we revisited it, it was a no-brainer for us. We're like, oh my god, this is going to be awesome. We really, really enjoyed the whole process. It was great.
That's cool. Are there any other movies that you want to write about, or is there a movie or anything passionate enough where you're like, you know what, maybe we want to, because it's something you guys have done in the past as well, I believe, with The Shining,
Well,
right?
yeah. The
You've done
funny
that.
thing is, yeah, the funny thing is that you say that is movies heavily influence this band. Um, in Because we're very easily influenced by movies. I'm sure you feel the same. You watch a movie, don't you feel, you walk away with a certain feeling, you feel something, um, like the movie The Shining, let's say. Okay. The Shining was such a had such an impact on all of us as kids. I think a lot of that vibe of The Shining made
Mhm.
its way into Life of Agony music and videos over the years. We have a video called Desire from years ago in the 90s, late 90s, and it's very Shining esque. Like, if you watch that video, we really borrowed a lot from The Shining. But it's very, like, Goodfellas and stuff like that had such a
Mhm.
strong influence on us.
Yeah,
Somehow though it worked its way into our music over the years. Like, but it's true. It definitely, movies have had a heavy influence on this band over the years, without a doubt.
it's awesome. Are there any movies out there, like, even that you watched in the past where you're like, man, I could see myself writing? Obviously, the band's got to all feel it and whatnot. But is there any other movies where you're all like, maybe we should try to tackle this at some point, or maybe this movie we should try to tackle this and write something about it?
Well, we never discussed anything particular like that.
Okay.
Like, hey, let's tackle that. I think it came to us like the whole Crow thing because of Corinne Hardy, the director. He
Mhm.
came to us with the idea, "Hey, I want you guys to write a song. I'm going to be working on this project," and you know, basically that's how that happened. But as far as just picking a movie and saying, "Hey, we want to write something," it never. I think it's more of the influence of the movie
Mhm.
after we've seen something. The influence is just resonating in our souls, and it
Yeah.
comes out in the music and in our creativity, in a certain way. And video, of course.
Mhm.
A lot of movies influence how you structure your videos over the years. Let's say, even the video for this time, one of our first videos. It was actually our second video, but from the first album. Um, it had Seymour Cassell, an actor who has passed away since,
Okay.
but it was really like it was a very, if you watch the video, it had a lot of turmoil in it with a family and my cousins breaking furniture and lamps and smashing televisions. It had a very Raging Bull, like you remember the
Okay.
movie The Raging Bull? It almost had a
Been a long
raging,
time. Been a long
yeah.
time since I've seen it. Probably is yeah, long time. Like I know with The
So
Crow, like it's been years. I tried to sit down and watch The Crow before I was like, am I gonna have time to watch it before you and I talk? And I was like, no, it's gonna have to get saved for after you and I talk to go back and rewatch it.
rewatch it because we just showed the movie to our daughters,
Okay.
and it was great because they were like they hear the music coming through the floor, of course, of the house. They hear it,
Mhm.
they heard it for weeks on end of us recording the song here at my studio, and my daughter said at dinner table, she was like, "Dad, what's this Crow? What are you guys writing? What is this?" And my wife was like, "Well, it's a movie that we grew up on. You want to see it?" So they're like, okay. So we watched The Crow in the living
Nice.
room during us making the song. So it was really cool. It was definitely, they loved it. It
I was about to
it
say, did
hold
they enjoy it? Yeah.
it holds up. It totally holds
Okay.
up. So yeah, it's cool how the movie still held up and they walked away from the movie going, wow, that was a really good movie. Both of them, both daughters.
That's good. That's good. I know it's. I was like 8 years old, I think, when that movie came out. It's I mean, so it's been like probably since I was like their age since I've seen it. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. You mentioned, you know, or one of the big things I want to talk to you about as well. You know, you guys have been around since 1989, which I feel
Yeah,
like I knew about you. College, I think I told you, college is when I learned about who Life of Agony was.
yeah.
And I had to go back and you do your research and double check things to make sure you get stuff right when I talk to you, and I don't sound like a buffoon or anything like that.
Get at
But it
it.
was like 1989 is when you all started. So what's and it's been three of the four members are still original from 1989. So one of the things I told you before we got rolling, I wanted to ask you was, how do you keep that nucleus together like that? And what are some of the keys? Like if you're a band, if some younger bands out there are watching it, I like to ask this question too. Do people have
Yeah.
been in the industry for a little while? What's some good advice for bands to stick together for that long?
I'll tell you, it's the same advice you would want to give in any relationship. Somebody that wants to keep a relationship together, um, honesty, loyalty to each other, being totally transparent with our thoughts and
Mhm.
feelings, but also making sure you're never condescending on your. You got to remember, we're a family. We're best friends. So the singer is my cousin, originally Keith Caputo,
Mhm.
now Mina Caputo, um, my first blood cousin, my mother and Mina's father, brother, and
Mhm.
sister. We lost my uncle,
Okay.
Tony. We also lost Mina's mother years ago. So Mina really grew up in our house. Um, so we were baby babies together. So we've been together our whole lives, like
Yeah.
brother and brother, brother and sister. Um, Alan, the bass player, has been my best friend from high school. So we grew up, doing the stuff best friends do, watching movies, like you said, playing
Mhm.
music, you know, whatever, going to shows. We grew up as best friends. We've always been best friends, and so is my cousin been like my best friend. We've told each other everything. We've shared everything with each other. So that's the nucleus. It's the three of us. We've had seven drummers over the
Yeah.
years, and that happens. Listen, you got to try to find the right person, and through experiences and through good times and bad times, you finally find someone. And we found Veronica Bellino. who's been with the band now since 2018, and the band has been in the best, how would you say, the best frame of mind as a whole, as a whole group, that, for as long as we can remember. So yeah, it's been a great journey with Veronica. So, but the three of us, going back to that, I think it's
Mhm.
really, honestly, Ryan, it boils down to honesty. It boils down to being really good to each other, looking out for each other, even when the person's not around.
Yeah.
That's a true friend. You know, so that's what we do for each other. We're there for each other. If we ever need each other, we never hold. In other words, we hold ourselves accountable for things. So, but if someone needs something, if let's say a show can't happen, like, oh my God, I can't do that because I have to do this. It's never an argument. It's never a fight. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, we got you, bro. Whatever it is, we're behind each other. And I think that's the key, is just being a good friend, just being real and being a good friend with each other.
And again, it boils down to stuff that's pretty simple. And I said it's why I wanted to ask you this because I told you and I've been talking too about new bands out there, and you produce a lot of bands, and
Yeah.
it's I think it's good advice because I think it's harder now than probably it's ever been. You can obviously speak more to this. I feel like it's probably one of the most difficult times to try to make it as a band.
Yeah,
You don't have as many
absolutely.
record labels taking um, a chance on new bands. Radio's got its own thing when it comes to new bands and whatnot. So I think this is all good advice for people. That's why I wanted to ask you it because it's
Yeah,
like,
I
hey,
think it's a
this it
great
comes down to this
question.
small thing.
I really think it's a great question you asked, because it could help a lot of people. And when the bands do come to my studio, I get asked questions like this a
Mhm.
lot. Like, how the heck did you guys do it for this many years, 30 years? How are you still a band? Because we respect each other.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. You could love somebody. You could say, "Oh, I love that person," but do you respect that person?
Hmm.
That's two different things I've learned.
Yeah.
You can love someone. Yeah, I love that guy. Do you respect that guy? That's what it boils down to. That's what I've
And,
learned over the years.
and you and I were talking too. You were in Stereo Mud. You told me you were in Stereo
Yeah.
Mud. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I never. It's something I never ever. I feel bad because I never realized that. As a teenager,
Doesn't matter.
getting that album in like middle school and high school, and it's like you the people that are in it of Corey Lowry, Clint
Yeah,
Lowry's brother, and it's like you told me you and the guys in that band still are pretty close, and everything
absolutely.
is so just because a band ends also, and, in Life of Agony's taking a couple of breaks in there when you guys have gone on and done other projects. And it doesn't mean just because either a band is over or you've taken breaks, it doesn't mean that you hate each other. It's just like, hey, you
No.
can still get along with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're still in touch. I'm still in touch with all those guys. We actually jump on the phone every now and again, have
Mhm.
a phone call. We're up on family news, if whether it's bad or good. How that goes.
Mhm.
As we get older,
Yep.
people die and people pass on, and then there's the celebration of good things that happen. And a lot of us have kids now. I had the drummer of Stereo Mud, Dan Richardson, come up here with his son Walter, made them breakfast. They live
Mhm.
in Florida now, but they were up
Okay.
visiting New York, and Dan was like, "Hey, I want to come by." So had them over here, and Walter, his son, was talking at the breakfast table how he loves golf so much, and he can't wait to get a set of golf clubs. And Dan looked over and was like, "Yeah, when you could afford them, you'll get golf clubs." Like joking with him, and I was like, "You know what, Walter? I have something for you." I went downstairs. I had a set of Titleist
Okay.
irons that I haven't played with in a long time, and they were just sitting down there, basically brand new. A couple of them even had the plastic still on the grip, that I never took off. And I came upstairs and I gave him a set of irons, and he literally, like, he didn't know what to
Mhm.
do. He was like basically bawling. He was sending me pictures from the airport on the way home with his golf clubs, saying, "I can't believe you gave me a set of golf clubs." But this is how we are.
Mhm.
This is what I'm talking about. It's like, although the band's over, I'm still on the phone with Corey, talking to Corey Lowry, and finding out what's going on in his life and family. I called Eric Rogers, the singer, not so long ago, just to like touch base with him and see how he's doing. And he was so happy to hear from me. And it's just, it's just being, just again, it's just being a real person.
Yep.
Um, just reaching out to friends. And sometimes time can go by, as you know, Ryan. Like,
Mhm.
you moved a couple of times. You may have a friend that you're like, you know what, I kind of lost touch a little bit, but if you see that person and you guys bump into each other,
Yep.
it's gonna be like no time has passed
Yeah.
because of the way you are. I could tell the type of person you are. And that's how
Yeah.
I am. I'm the same. Like, I bump into an old friend, it's like, oh my God, it's like it's immediate. Like, not even no thinking at all. It's on. So,
No.
that's how it is
Again,
with the band members.
I'm glad you brought that up because again, people think, oh, band goes away, oh, they hate each other, oh, it didn't work out, oh, they don't, and maybe maybe at some point there was everyone's like, oh my gosh, before we all want to kill each other, let's go our separate ways, and maybe that's what happens. But it doesn't mean that everything is negative when a band breaks up and goes away. I told you that Stereo Mud CD is still somewhere on my shelf next to me.
That's
Here,
awesome.
I
I
know
love that.
it's up there. It's been years since I've listened to it, but I know it's up there. My company actually gave me a bookshelf because for years I told you moved with radio. Everything has kind of stayed. I had CDs in like 4 boxes at one point, and I'm like, I don't remember what CDs and what box. And it's like every once in a while you go and you grab a couple, road trip. All right, I'm gonna go grab a couple and move it and check these out. But now it's like, and you're not the first person I've interviewed where I was like, I know the record you're talking about is over there, right next to me. It's a
Yeah.
foot away from me, somewhere over there. So,
And you're a big
um,
Seven Dust fan, you said. You're a big Seven Dust fan, and,
yeah, pretty
I
much
had
every single one, every single Seven Dust CD is over there. My dad picked up the last one I needed. I think it was Next. Was it Next or I think it was Next was the only one I didn't have, and he found it at a record shop back home in Ohio. So when I read
oh,
LJ,
that's awesome.
dude, I'm like, I said, my father just picked up the last CD that I didn't have from you guys. I couldn't find anywhere. That was like $45 on Amazon. And while I love you, I need to put gas in my car for $45. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, getting to tour with those guys, being that it's your favorite band, was special. Those guys were really, really, really fun band to tour with. I'll tell you what, Seven Dust, if anyone out there hasn't gone to a Seven Dust show, you go to a Seven Dust. You wanna see some musicians throw down? Those guys could throw down. They're really good,
It's
man.
the band that everybody says they don't want to follow on a festival.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
I think Nick,
Thank God with Stereo Mud, they were headlining, so
yeah.
they go on after us every night.
I know Nickelback said that. I know Lou Brutus has said that. And I think Lou Brutus talked too about when Seven Dust plays at a festival, the musicians that line both sides of the stage is
Yeah,
incredible because everyone says this is a show. Like,
yeah,
and I know LJ is a big person about talking about are you a band or whatnot. Like, are you a band? And it means I know the word when he says are you a band,
yeah,
what if you're a musician, you know what he means. Like,
yeah,
is this serious? Are you doing the things you're supposed to do? He's like,
yep,
there's a lot of groups out there. There's not always a lot of bands out there. So, um,
exactly. Yeah, Life of Agony is a band, especially
mhm,
now. Well, we've always been a band, but we definitely are a band.
yeah. Do you have more music on the way? I know obviously the Crow just came out, but what's the Life of Agony plans for future tunes? It's been it's pre-COVID since we've had a record
Yeah.
from Life of Agony. Kind of what are you able to share when it comes to new music on the way?
Well, here's this song. I feel like gave us a little bit of a boost, which is great.
Mhm.
We're a band that we really feel out when those that writing magic is happening. We have a lot of plans for 2025, so we'll be together a lot. So I'm sure we'll be talking about some new music or sharing some new music with each other. It happens all the time. When it comes to a full record, for us, it's the timing of our lives that
Mhm.
really plays a huge role in that. Um, it's just timing, and we have a lot of plans. There's some big tours being announced soon that we're going to be doing in 2025. One I could talk about is
Yeah.
we're going to be doing the Ugly album in its entirety. We're going to do an Ugly 30th anniversary tour. We did River Runs Red
Okay.
last year in 2023. Ugly is another fan favorite record. It was our second record, and we've been asked a whole bunch of times by fans and by industry people if we're going to do a 30-year tour for that album because the River Runs Red tour was so successful. And it looks like we're going to do it. So there's some nice big plans happening in 2025. so we'll get to spend a lot of time together, which is great. And we also are doing this really cool co-headlining tour that I can't talk about yet because
Okay.
I'm not allowed. And the band is so cool. And it's going to be announced soon, I believe, because with
Mhm.
the artwork's even being created right now. I saw a couple of drafts going back and forth the other day. Alan, by the way, our bass player, is an amazing artist, and he does a lot of the art for the band. So he's
Okay.
drafting up a couple of drafts for that tour right now, and it's going to be a special tour. That's happening in Europe, and I'm guessing with the success of it in Europe, that we'll end up doing some shows also in America with this co-headlining this matchup that we got going on. So
Awesome.
it's exciting.
Gross.
But I wish I could talk about it, but I'm not allowed. So yeah, I gotta button it up. I gotta zip
All
it
right.
up.
All right. So I know you guys Facebook Life of Agony Familia on there. So if you want to find out everything that the band's up to, obviously your website, social media, all that stuff is where you can go to follow you guys. Joey, last question I have for you, because I ask this to every person that comes on for the first time I interview them. There used to be a blog post when I was in Wisconsin. It was about your favorite complete albums, your favorite no skip records.
Okay.
You are still somebody who told me you don't really have any streaming services. You don't do this. You still go buy records, which is awesome. I feel like it's a rock and metal thing at this point, where we're kind
Yeah.
of the ones that still like the physical. I mean, I have some streaming services, can be able to find bands and then get them on the air, which has been cool, like our spotlight kind of stuff. But I still love having a physical album in my hand. So for
Me
you,
too.
some of your favorite like no skip records of all
Okay. Well, one is the Pink Floyd The Wall. I love that album. Radiohead, OK Computer. Of course, Metallica, Master of Puppets.
time.
I just love that whole album. The band Muse, Absolution. Um, Brandy Carlisle, The Story.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard that album. That's just an incredible album. Um, let's see. I got so many. I can go on and on and on. Believe it or not. Um, sorry. I'm
That
drawing.
appears to be it appears to be a running theme with a lot of bands, because they're like, "Hey, we can just keep going if you want to." I'm like, if you want to share more, like, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I mean,
Well, I've had some bands that have just kind of
oh,
taken over at one point, because it's multiple people in a band I'm interviewing, and they'll just
yeah.
bounce off each other, and I'm like, I'll just sit here and shut
Sepultura
up. Like, it's fine.
Roots.
Okay,
Sepultura Roots. Gojira. I mean, almost every Gojira
yeah,
album. I can just name them all. But Magma was the first one I got. And although I started at Magma, then I
that's
went
over there
backwards.
somewhere. That's
Yeah,
over
and
there somewhere too. Yeah.
then I went forward. That album, all of their albums. Like I said, a lot of the Sepultura records. I'm a huge Sepultura fan. I've always been. Roots, Chaos AD, of course. Even Arise. I love that whole
Okay.
album, Sepultura Arise. And then some hardcore albums like Cro-Mag's Age of Quarrel, Carnivore, Retaliation, which I played in Carnivore as well with Peter, the second
Okay.
rendition of that band. Um, let's see. I would say, wow. I mean, I have a bunch of others. I think for now, I should cap it because otherwise,
That's a good. It's a good list. Some people are like, okay, they'll give me one, and I'm like, you can give me more than one if you want. So I
oh
mean, hey,
yeah, I
some
have
people go on and
plenty.
give me like five, six. It's like, hey, they're like, is that too many? I'm like, no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. I enjoy
Oh,
enjoy hearing a bunch of them.
Pink Floyd, The Final Cut, one of my favorite all time.
Yep.
Just put it on and leave it on. Roger Waters, The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. I don't know if you ever heard that album. You should
Mm-mm.
check it out. Very, very cool record. If you talk about like just putting on a record and just zoning out on it,
Yeah,
put that record on. Roger Waters, Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. Um, we're
it's a great
big
album
Pink
title.
Floyd fan. Yeah, thank you. We're big Floyd fans in this band. I think The Wall heavily and Final Cut actually
Mhm.
heavily influenced Life of Agony in the early years and still to this day. But that was also a heavy influence on our music writing way back when was the Final Cut, that album. I still listen to that album in its entirety. Like if I'm in the van or in
Mhm.
traveling on the plane, uh, for long hours, I'll put on albums. All my favorite, I just leave them. I just let them go. I just put them on and let them go.
I
All
know
the ones
that's
I just named for you.
it's the best. I still love putting a CD on, let's do it from start to finish. I mean, and there's always, we play stuff on the radio that are singles, but there's always deep cuts out there that you love, and it's like, oh, why wasn't this a single, or why wasn't this? But it's like, you know what, you love them just the same.
I have another one. I have a couple
Yep.
more.
Yep.
Deftones, White Pony. Holy
Okay.
crap. That album. I love that album.
I remember that album coming out as a teenager. My brother and I listening to it. It's been a long time since I've listened to it, but it's like that's one where it's like, oh, that also, like I told you, Linkin Park. It's like that was when Deftones came out with White Pony. It was like, oh, this is another like kind of like gateway to a whole bunch of other
All the
bands and
way through.
whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, all the way through for that album. Same with Diamond Eyes. Same with I love that album all the way through. Their album Diamond Eyes. So yeah, there's a couple more for you. Believe it or not, I also love that first Korn record. I love those guys. I just saw those guys the other night too. I just said hello to Monkey. He was like, Joey Z, gave me the biggest hug. He was so cool. He was so nice. Those guys are so sweet. Even Brian Head was like, no way, Joey. I was just hanging out with them. They were so cool.
They never disappoint. I saw them live. I think it was 3 years ago. It's been a couple years since I've seen them, but it had been maybe like 5 years since I'd seen them live, and I was like, God, they're still so good. And I know they're doing the 30th anniversary thing right now, and it's just like,
yeah,
there's no stops here, kind of in this area, which is fine. Bands you make stops where you can make them, but it's like, man, with Gojira and Spirit Box, it's like, man, I would have loved to have had a show down in St. Louis or something, which would have been great. But yeah, that's another band where it's just like it's incredible. It's another gateway band. Like when I was a teenager, it's like, oh, it's a band my parents don't want me listening to, but my brother and I can listen to it anyway, and it's it's one of these bands that stuck with me since I was 12, 13 years old.
Heck yeah! You ever hear the band Spirit World?
Who?
Spirit World.
Spirit World? I don't believe so.
You have to check out the song "Ulcer" by Spirit World. Check out, write it down, jot it down. Well, it's on the interview; it's recording. So
yeah, I like whenever somebody brings up music, I take notes. During the interview or not, I'll take notes and be like, hey, everybody can hold on for 5 seconds. I'm writing this down.
Yeah, Ulcer, the song Ulcer. You'll see what I mean when you hear that song. You'll be, oh, okay, now I understand what Joey's talking about. You'll like it instantly. It's so badass. Such a cool song. I got into that recently. You know what band I really love though, Ryan? I really love, believe it or not, I'm so into them. When you get waves of a band, like I've always been into them, but now I'm like in a heavy wave of them. Stained. I've been just listening to so much Stained lately. Like I just love that band. I just love their music. I love
having them come back last year.
Yeah,
was cool because there were like multiple bands from like when I started in active rock radio that weren't doing anything. Like obviously, Linkin Park didn't have anything new that hit active rock radio when I started. Stained was another one. Tool was another one. So like as like some 30-year-old dude, I'm saying like, hey, brand new Linkin Park, brand new Stained for the first time on the radio, and I'm saying brand new Tool. And it's like, oh, these bands again I've listened to since I was a teenager. And it's like never in my professional career have I ever been able to say brand new music from Tool or brand new music from Stained or brand new music from Linkin Park, even though it was, the unearthed kind of Linkin Park stuff. It's still new. Nobody's ever, nobody outside of probably a few people have ever heard it. So it's like when you mentioned Stained, it's like, it was so nice to have them back.
Yeah, man.
Last year. New record from them was like, oh, this is wonderful.
Yeah, I just went to go see them as well with the Breaking Benjamin co-headlining tour.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. And Daughtry was on it.
Yeah,
the band Daughtry, they were great too. They were really excellent. The whole show was just phenomenal. I just loved it from start to finish. I loved the whole show. And Stained was just incredible. They sound so good. Mike is a great guitarist. I love hearing his playing and watching him play. And Aaron is just an amazing vocalist. I just love that band. They're just so good. I love their songs. I love their songs.
I know. It's wonderful having them back. Again, the crow from you guys. Tim will be spinning here a little bit on QLZ and doing some stuff with. And Joey, I'm glad we were able to talk everything from Italian food to obviously your guys' music. And as the more you look at everybody's last names and everything, it's like, all right, I'm pretty sure like most people in this band are Italian. We'll talk about some Italian stuff as we do. And you double check the Facebook page and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what we're going to write beside the Italian flag. I got the American flag back there behind me. The Italian flag's back up on the wall back there in my little cubicle here at home. So I was
I
like,
love it.
we'll have some fun with this. So Joey, again, dude, I appreciate the time, man. Follow Life of Agony on social media to know what's going on. And Joey, we'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you for playing. By the way, thank you for playing the track. Thank you so much, you guys, for picking up the track, for having me on and doing the interview. Thank you so much, Ryan. Really, I had such a nice time talking to you.
So Joey, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you